My little sister's school organized a charity sale, and she brought back a love letter that she bought for $5. Staring at this love letter from 8 years ago, I fell into deep thought. The signature at the bottom read, Seraphine. Isn't this my aloof former deskmate, who is now my equally aloof boss? Just as I was about to ask for details, a call came through to the house, and the kid on the other end of the line was crying their lungs out. Because of an intern's mistake, our entire team was heavily criticized. And as the team leader, I was scolded the worst. By the time I walked out of the boss's office feeling crestfallen, the intern was practically in tears. I looked at the 2 dark circles under her eyes. The work intensity had been incredibly high these past few days, and our entire team had been working overtime without a break. I waved my hand dismissively. A cold female voice drifted over, giving the intern a severe fright, and my body stiffened as well. I looked up and saw Seraphine frowning at me. That iceberg beauty of a face was intimidating just to look at. I forced a stiff smile. Seraphine stared at me fixedly for a few seconds before closing the door to her office. When I stepped out to get water halfway through work, I heard a few interns whispering timidly, "She's so fierce to Director Callias. Director Callias has such a strong heart. If it were me, I definitely couldn't handle it." I heard Director Callias and the boss used to be high school classmates. Are you serious? So, the boss doesn't show an ounce of mercy even when scolding an old classmate. What a devil. I shrugged my shoulders. Who says she isn't? Seraphine was simply a devil. I wasn't just some ordinary high school classmate to her. We had shared a desk for 3 whole years, yet she still didn't give me any face. I was just about to leave when I heard their conversation take a turn. By the way, I heard the boss is engaged. Yeah, a while back I even saw her fiancé drop her off at the company. My footsteps faltered and my fingers gripping the cup unconsciously curled into a fist. I looked toward the office at the end of the corridor and for some reason my chest felt heavy and stifled. After a month of grueling work, the project finally made significant progress and the company gave us 5 days off. The interns were so thrilled they could cry. I politely declined their dinner invitation and drove straight back to my hometown. I hadn't been back in half a year. Fortunately, it wasn't too far away, only taking a little over 4 hours by car. It was already late at night when I arrived home. My sudden return gave my mom a start, but she happily went to make my bed while my dad hummed a tune and cooked me a midnight snack. I put away my luggage and quietly pushed open the door to the small bedroom. A little girl was buried in the blankets, her sleeping face sweet and peaceful. Fiora was my parents' momentary lapse in caution when I was in high school. Suddenly having such a young little sister was something I found hard to adapt to at first. But as Fiora grew up, she became more and more adorable, perfectly inheriting my mom's patience and my dad's intelligence. She was also incredibly clingy with me, and whenever she got something good, I was always the first person she thought of. Early the next morning, I was roused by some movement. Blinking my eyes open groggily, I saw Fiora leaning over my bed staring at me unblinking. Brother, you're back." "Yeah." I closed my eyes again. "Be good. Brother needs to sleep a little longer." "Okay, I'm going to school. I'll bring you a present when I get back." I mumbled in acknowledgement. When Fiora tiptoed out, she even thoughtfully closed the door behind her. This little girl was quite considerate. It seemed her pocket money wasn't too shabby if she could actually bring me a present. I was a bit looking forward to it. By the time I finally got out of bed, it was almost 11 o'clock. Fiora had already finished school and returned home. My parents asked me to look after her for a while, and then they went to the supermarket together to buy groceries. As soon as my parents left, Fiora sidled up to me mysteriously. "Brother, guess what present I brought you?" How could I possibly guess that? Just as I was about to throw out a random guess, she couldn't hold it in any longer and held an envelope right in front of my face. "Look, brother, this has your name written on it." I froze for a moment and took the letter. The paper was a bit yellowed and looked like it had been around for a while. On the front of the envelope, it read to Callis. Fiora was chattering non-stop. "Our school held a charity sale today. We brought old things we didn't use at home to school, and classmates could buy whatever they wanted. The money we make at the end will be donated to the Hope Primary School. My deskmate brought so many things, old books and old stationery. I found this letter tucked inside a book, so I bought it for $5. Fiora had a look on her face begging for praise. "Brother, do you like it?" My first reaction was complete bewilderment. From childhood to adulthood, I was never considered handsome in my class. I spent my days wearing thick glasses with an introverted and dull personality. When others tried to talk to me, I never knew how to respond. So, no girl had ever given me a love letter. Holding this letter, I felt completely at a loss, but Fiora kept urging me. Brother, hurry up and open it. I don't think that's a good idea. After all, it's someone else's belonging, especially a private letter like a love letter. But I saved up my pocket money for a whole week to finally buy this. Kids are always impatient. She snatched the letter back, tore it open in 2 or 3 rough motions, and shoved it back into my hands. Brother, read it to me. My classmate said he took this from his aunt's treasure box. It's full of good stuff, so this must be good, too. I was just about to refuse when, out of the corner of my eye, I caught a glimpse of the signature at the very end, Seraphine. It felt like a clap of thunder exploding in my mind. I was stunned for several seconds before my gaze stiffly moved up to read the contents of the letter. Callias, this year marks our 3rd year sharing a desk. I slapped my hand over the letterhead, my face flushing so hot it felt like it might explode. My sister was still urging me on. Brother, hurry up and read it. I want to hear it, too. Finding an excuse to send my sister away, I clutched the envelope and rushed into my room. I opened the window and let the wind blow over me for a good while, but my heart still couldn't calm down. I looked at the letter again, and I was absolutely certain. This was written by Seraphine. I recalled the beginning of my freshman year of high school and my first meeting with Seraphine. At that time, I was a kid from a small town attending the #1 high school in the city all by myself. I was carrying a super sturdy woven sack packed with absolutely everything. When I reached the school gates, I simply couldn't carry it anymore, so I resorted to dragging it along the ground. But I had overestimated the quality of that woven sack. Under the immense friction against the ground, the sack tore wide open. I had walked a long distance before I suddenly realized the weight felt off. I turned around and saw that my belongings were scattered all over the path behind me. Books, stationery, toiletries, and my lunchbox. The surrounding students were all looking at me, and continuous bursts of laughter echoed around. Blushing furiously, I squatted on the ground and worked my way backward to pick things up. I hadn't been picking things up for long when I collided head-on with a girl walking toward me. The girl was carrying a backpack. She had a cold, beautiful face, wore her hair in a ponytail, and was quite tall. She was holding a pile of miscellaneous items, and she said something faintly. I shook my head awkwardly, barely daring to look up at her. She thought for a moment, took a few books out of her backpack, and then handed the empty backpack to me. Confused, I accepted the young girl's white backpack and looked up blankly. Seraphine pointed at the books I had just picked up. I instinctively looked at her books. The covers had her class and name pasted on them. Class 3, Grade 10, Seraphine. If we were talking about having a crush, I was actually the first one to like her. It was just a pity that this secret crush faded away into nothing due to various reasons. After graduating from college, I entered an unknown, small company as an intern. I never expected to run into her again, and only then did I realize that she was the one who founded this small company. The gap between people always seems to grow wider and wider. While I was still trying to figure out how to feed myself, Seraphine had already started her own business and entered the upper echelons of society. So, why exactly did this love letter ever come to exist? I racked my brains but couldn't come up with a reason. Would Seraphine be embarrassed now? Just thinking about this made my heart beat quicken unconsciously. But before I could dwell on it, I suddenly remembered the gossip I had heard a while ago. Seraphine might already have a fiancé. Therefore, whether this love letter was real or fake, it can only become a thing of the past. As I was feeling melancholic, I heard Fiona's tearful voice coming from outside the door. I pushed the door open to take a look and saw Fiona holding her kid's smartwatch, currently on a call with someone. The person on the other end was probably her classmate. Upon hearing his words, she burst out crying. Perhaps she cried too miserably, for Fiona eventually curled her lips downward and stopped talking. She hesitated for a long time while the other side kept pleading bitterly. The boy sounded utterly relieved, and after a moment he suddenly blurted out a sentence. I jolted, suddenly darting out of my room. I grabbed Fiona's smartwatch and interrogated him. The boy stammered out a reply, "S. Seraphine." At that very moment the doorbell rang. I froze, then quickly pressed my eye against the peephole to look. Outside the door Seraphine was waiting patiently. She was dressed in casual clothes, looking a bit more approachable. But that wasn't the main point. The point was that if I opened the door right now it would be extremely awkward for both of us. How would we ever work together at the company after this? I turned my head and exchanged a glance with Fiona. Just as she was about to speak, I clamped my hand over her mouth. Be good. You go open the door. Don't say your brother is home and don't say who your brother is. I sprinted back into my room, quickly restored the letter to its original state, and shoved it into Fiona's hands. Give the letter back to her and then close the door. At this point, I couldn't care less about manners. Fiona nodded. After I was securely hidden in the room, she ran over and opened the door. Seeing the door open, Seraphine was just about to speak, but she didn't see anyone there. She paused, looked down, and saw a little girl holding an envelope and staring up at her. The little girl wore an incredibly aggrieved expression. Seraphine's previously furrowed brows instinctively relaxed. She glanced at the envelope and asked a question, noticing the rather obvious creases and marks on it. Fiona's little eyes darted around and she immediately gave an excuse. Seraphine smiled and didn't press the matter. She handed Fiona a red envelope. Wishing you progress in your studies. She didn't stay long and left quickly. After the door closed, I came out of the room, and Fiona gave me an okay gesture. Mission successfully accomplished. The holiday ended, and I hurried back to the city where I worked. I was organizing the materials I needed for a meeting the next day when I realized I had left an important document at the company. There was some data that needed to be cross-checked, and checking it the next day would definitely be too late. Without hesitation, I grabbed my car keys and headed out the door. I arrived at the company, grabbed the document, and was just about to leave when, out of the corner of my eye, I caught the light spilling from the office at the end of the hall. I hadn't expected Seraphine to be working overtime as well. I thought for a moment and decided to walk over. I was just about to knock on the door when I peered through the blinds and saw the scene inside. My raised hand froze instantly. Seraphine was lying on the sofa. Her long, slender legs were slightly curled up. She wore an impeccably neat white shirt, but the top two buttons had been unfastened at some point, revealing an exquisite collarbone. I paused, then lightened my movements and pushed the door open, terrified of disturbing her. Seraphine's brows were slightly furrowed. She couldn't find peace even in her dreams. In my memory, she seemed to always be like this. Those beautiful eyes and brows of hers were never truly relaxed. Yet, I also remembered that Seraphine had once shown a very gentle side. That was in the second semester of our sophomore year in high school. I had been her desk mate for a year by then. She was the math representative, and I was the biology representative. That afternoon, the teacher sent us to the printing shop at the school gates to pick up test papers. As soon as I stepped out of the school gates, I bumped into my grandma, who had come to see me. She was overjoyed. Our school normally didn't allow outsiders to enter or leave freely. She had taken a coach bus from the small town, traveling a long and bumpy way. As a result, the moment she arrived at the gates, she spotted me. She held my hand, chattering away happily about so many things. Seraphine stood not too far away, waiting for me. My grandma asked me, "Did you bring those sticky rice cakes I asked you to share with your classmates last week? Did they like them?" I smiled. They loved them. They all said your cooking is amazing. My grandma's face broke into a massive smile. But I had lied. I had eaten all those sticky rice cakes by myself. Initially, I had distributed them to my roommates, but I accidentally saw them throwing the food into the trash can. They said it was filthy, unhygienic stuff that would make them sick. I didn't want the food my grandma had worked so hard to make to be trampled on. And as a teenager going through puberty, I had my own pride. So, I ate all of those remaining sticky rice cakes myself. I told my grandma to wait for me at the entrance of the printing shop. I would take her to eat as soon as I got the test papers. But there was a problem with the biology papers, so I had to go find the teacher again. When I finished dealing with it and came back out, I saw Seraphine at the entrance, keeping my grandma company and chatting with her. I heard my grandma ask her, "Did Kalea share the sticky rice cakes with you?" Seraphine paused for a moment, then smiled and said, "I ate them. They were very delicious." Upon hearing this, my grandma was even happier. "Grandma has more right here. Do you want some?" Elders are always like this, accustomed to saving what they think is the best for the younger generation. To my grandma, the sticky rice cakes she made with her own hands were the absolute best thing she could offer her grandson to share with his classmates. I looked at Seraphine nervously, but to my surprise, she reached out, took that piece of sticky rice cake, and ate it without any hesitation. She even sweetly thanked my grandma. I watched in a daze. I heard her praising me, saying that I got good grades, studied very hard, was enthusiastic and helpful, and had many friends. My grandma was so happy that day. It was also from that day onward that I realized I seemed to like her a little. A secret crush is a solitary, chaotic war. I would secretly pay attention to Seraphine's every move. I would imitate the little habit she had when pondering a problem. I would mimic her handwriting. The occasional physical contact between classes would make my heart race. Just like that, I carefully collected these precious moments. Right before summer vacation in our sophomore year, I prepared to confess my feelings to Seraphine. But around that time, some rumors about Seraphine suddenly began circulating in the class. I heard her mom and sister were beaten so badly by her dad that they ran away. Her dad went to prison the year before last for getting drunk and causing trouble. Are you serious? I always felt Seraphine gave off a gloomy vibe, like the type of person who would stab you in the back. Seriously, I heard bad genes are hereditary. We'd better stay away from her in the future. Oh, wow. Seraphine won't be able to take the civil service exams in the future. The tone was full of malicious delight. I couldn't bear it anymore. I turned my head and glared at them. Someone is just jealous that she always gets first place in exams and is bitter about being the eternal runner-up, right? That person froze for a moment, then cursed, "Are you sick in the head? You're the one who's sick, rabies." To be honest, as someone who had always been introverted, I rarely argued so fiercely with anyone. Once the argument started, before the other person could even say much, my own eyes turned red with agitation. So, when Seraphine walked in right behind the teacher, what she saw was the pathetic sight of me with red eyes cursing at someone. That person and I were called out of the classroom to stand in the hallway as punishment. When the teacher asked for the reason behind our argument, we exchanged a glance and both chose to remain silent. He was silent because of a guilty conscience. I was silent because I was afraid she would hear. And my secret crush also came to an end that summer. The day I finally gathered the courage to confess to Seraphine was the last day of summer vacation. Following the address in my memory, I found Seraphine's home. And outside her house, 2 or 3 people were peering inside. I hurried forward. Suddenly, a massive crash erupted from the courtyard. Through the courtyard gates, I saw the inner door being kicked open and Seraphine was thrown out onto the ground. Although the man was tall and burly, he had been drinking and couldn't stand steadily. Seraphine wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth, got up, and lunged right at him. Using her thin, frail body, she slammed the man onto the ground. The man grew frantic and hit back even harder. Seraphine raised her hand high up, paused for a moment, and then let it drop dejectedly. She stumbled to her feet, lowering her eyes to look at the man on the ground. His words dropped like a bomb in my heart. I suddenly understood why Seraphine studied so desperately. Because she didn't accept her fate, she wanted to change it. Looking down at the love letter in my hand, I unexpectedly felt a wave of shame. Perhaps I shouldn't confess to her. This might be a source of trouble for Seraphine, a burden to her. I clenched my fists tightly. I waited silently until the police arrived at the door, and only then did I quietly leave that alley. Then, I buried my feelings deep in my heart all the way until the college entrance exams ended. Seraphine was not only the top scorer in our school's college entrance exams that year, but she was also the city's science valedictorian. Flowers and applause were endless, and calls from major prestigious universities kept coming one after another. Although I also got into a good university, compared to Seraphine, it seemed entirely insignificant. The gap was created at that very moment. And my adolescent crush concluded amidst my countless moments of hesitation and pacing. At the high school graduation ceremony, I stood beside Seraphine, staring straight ahead, but my head tilted toward her. "Seraphine, I wish you a bright future." Seraphine was taken aback for a moment. Her voice was as soft and aloof as ever. "Thank you. I wish you a bright future, too." With that, the era of our youth brought its curtains down. In the silent office, I looked at the woman before me. "Seraphine, you have already made a name for yourself, so why are you still not happy?" On the coffee table sat a half glass of coffee that had already gone completely cold, with a few documents scattered next to it. Seraphine truly looked exhausted. She had distinct dark circles under her eyes. I stared at her fixedly for a few seconds, then took a bundled-up jacket and gently draped it over her. But the exact moment I let go, my wrist was firmly grasped by someone. I raised my eyes and locked gazes right with Seraphine. My heart skipped a beat. Seraphine's eyes were a bit dazed at first, but she quickly regained her aloof clarity. Why are you here? I came back to the company to grab a document. I saw the lights were on over here, so I came in to take a look. Seraphine glanced at the jacket that had slipped down to her lap, stayed silent for 2 seconds, then got up to pour a glass of water. I was just about to quietly slip out when I heard Seraphine call my name. I stopped. Boss, is there anything else? She stared at me straight on for a few seconds. I'm sorry for having a bad attitude towards you in front of the intern earlier. I hadn't expected her to suddenly apologize to me. I quickly replied, it's fine. Our team did have an issue. It's my responsibility. You don't need to take it to heart, boss. Seraphine paused. You. For some inexplicable reason, I felt a surge of nervousness. Just as my heart was twisting into a knot, I heard her change her tone. Head back early. Drive safe on the road. Understood, boss. I gently opened the door and walked out, letting out a long sigh of relief. I had worked for 5 consecutive days. After getting off work on Friday, I went back to my apartment and slept until the sky went dark and the earth spun. When I woke up, it was almost 10 o'clock. I picked up my phone, only to see several hundred new messages in the intern's group chat. Intern Camille had lost a necklace. It was a piece her mother had specially taken to a temple to be blessed. It meant a lot to her, and she had searched for a long time but couldn't find it. She was asking in the group chat if anyone had seen it, and wondering if it might have been picked up by the cleaning lady. What if she treated it like trash and swept it away? I sent a voice message to comfort her. Don't worry. Can you pinpoint the time you lost it? I'll help you check the surveillance footage. Camille thought about it carefully. It might have been around 4 or 5 in the afternoon. I felt hot and took off my jacket. Did it fall off then? I had the authorization to view the security cameras, so I directly clicked on today's footage. I found Camille's workstation and watched the footage back and forth several times. Finally, I zoomed in on the screen. I stared at it closely for a long time before seeing that when Camille took off her jacket, something fell off her. It just so happened to be kicked under the desk by a passing colleague. I breathed a sigh of relief, took a screenshot of the video, and sent it to Camille. Thank you, Callias. Where should I go get it on Monday? No problem. It's good that we found it. I exited the chat and was just about to close the surveillance video. But I accidentally clicked the mouse. The video skipped straight to 9 o'clock in the evening. Seraphine's silhouette flashed past. My movements paused and I marveled inwardly. Did Seraphine really only get off work at 9 o'clock? At the same time, I felt a bit puzzled. When Seraphine gets off work and leaves the company, she doesn't pass through this area. Driven by curiosity, I clicked my finger. The surveillance footage skipped forward a few more seconds. I saw on the screen Seraphine pausing in front of my workstation for 2 seconds. After she left, a few white rabbit milk candies appeared on my desk. My eyes went wide and I shot up straight in my seat. There would be candies on my desk almost every single day. I had assumed they were given by colleagues who arrived early. I had eaten them all without a second thought. I tapped on the keyboard and checked the surveillance footage from the past few days. Dragging the time to 8 or 9 o'clock in the evening, sure enough, I saw Seraphine again. The person giving the candies had always been her. Right then, my phone vibrated, interrupting my scattered thoughts. I glanced at the caller ID. My heart skipped a beat. What could Seraphine want with me at this hour? I pressed the answer button, but an unfamiliar male voice came from the other end. Hello, is this Callias? Mr. Callias? Yes, and you are? The boss is drunk. You might need to come over and pick her up. It was already 11 o'clock by the time I rushed to the Tingju Courtyard restaurant. At the entrance of a private secluded room, an elegant handsome man was on the phone. Seeing me, he smiled. He said something to the person on the other end, then hung up. He walked toward me and my entire body stiffened. Because I recognized him. An intern had previously posted photos of him and Seraphine in the small group chat. They all said this was Seraphine's fiancé. Mr. Callis, you got here fast. He pointed inside. Seraphine had a bit too much to drink. I'll have to trouble you to take her home. Seraphine. He called her so intimately. For no reason, a surge of sourness bubbled up in my heart, though I didn't show it on my face. I smiled back at him. All right. Are you heading back together as well? It was surely because both of them had been drinking and they were treating me as the designated driver. But to my surprise, he looked taken aback. Head back where? Home. My house isn't on the way to Seraphine's, he explained. Besides, my wife is already on her way to pick me up. Mr. Callis, you don't need to worry about me. Wife? I was dumbfounded. Seeing my expression, he realized what had happened. Who did you mistake me for? I let out 2 awkward laughs. The boss's fiancée, say. Ha ha ha, he laughed heartily. I'm 10 years older than her. You really know how to crack a joke. He extended a hand toward me. Hello. Let me introduce myself. My name is Evander. I'm one of the original people who partnered with Seraphine to start the company in the very beginning. Later, I withdrew due to family reasons. These past few years, my wife and I started a small company of our own, Evander said. Seraphine and I have always kept in touch. Today, I played middleman to help her make some connections. We went to a dinner party to discuss a project. She accidentally drank too much. I quickly apologized. I'm sorry, Mr. Evander. It was a misunderstanding. No worries, Evander called over a waiter. Together, they helped Seraphine into my car. Sitting in the driver's seat, I spoke up awkwardly. Mr. Evander, do you have the boss's home address? Now it was Evander's turn to be surprised. You don't have it? I blinked my eyes. Should I have it? Aren't you her secretary? I'm not. Oh, my apologies, sir. Your number is pinned to the very top of her phone contacts, so I assumed you were her secretary. That's why I called you. Evander hurriedly sent me the address. Drive safe. After driving quite a distance away, I still felt like my heart was beating a bit too fast. My mind was swirling, endlessly looping over the words Evander had just spoken. Your number is pinned to the very top of her phone contacts. Through the rearview mirror, I glanced at Seraphine in the back seat. Because of the alcohol, her face was somewhat flushed. I pulled my gaze back, but after only a few seconds, I couldn't resist looking again. This time, my eyes met Seraphine's. My hand gave a jerk, and the car swerved slightly in response. Seraphine pressed her fingers against her temples. She looked a little uncomfortable, yet she broke into a slight smile. Stop looking at me. Focus on driving. Oh, all right. My heart skipped a beat. I sat up ramrod straight, not daring to cast another stray glance. I should be thankful that Seraphine wasn't completely blackout drunk. Even though her steps swayed a bit, she could still walk back into her house properly on her own. As soon as she got inside, she lay down on the sofa. I rummaged high and low, and finally, in her empty kitchen, I found a jar of honey. The water I poured was a bit too hot. While waiting for the water to cool down, I unlocked my phone to check it. I discovered that Evander, whom I had just added as a friend, had sent me several WeChat messages. I was saying you looked so familiar. I just remembered now. Back when you joined Seraphine's company, I was the one who recruited you. There were so many college students applying at the time. Your resume wasn't anything remarkable. You got filtered out in the very first screening round. But when Seraphine saw it, she pulled your resume right back out. She said our company needed someone like you. Looking at it now, her decision back then was solid. You're capable, you're patient, and you have a forgiving nature. With you around, the company's team cohesion is much better. Keep up the good work, young man. This contained far too much information. I digested it for a moment, then replied, someone like me? Yes. Seraphine said you are a warm person. I turned to look at the living room. Seraphine was leaning her head back against the sofa. Her chest rose and fell slightly, and her breathing was a bit heavy. I brought the mixed honey water over to her. Boss. Seraphine didn't react. My heart skipped a beat. Had she caught a cold? Could Seraphine even hear me talking? I reached out and waved my hand in front of her eyes. Seraphine slowly opened her eyes. She reached out and grabbed my waiting palm. She tilted her head up to look at me. Her pitch-black pupils shimmered with a watery gleam. Callias. Yes. My heart was racing wildly. Yet, feigning calm, I tried to pull my hand back. Have some water. I was just about to reach for the glass, but Seraphine grabbed my wrist again. Turning my head to look, I realized she had sat up and wrapped her arms around my waist. I slumped down onto the sofa. Behind me, Seraphine's entire body was burning hot. Even through my shirt, I could feel it. Her violent heartbeat. Her arms clamped tightly around my waist. Her voice trembled slightly. Don't go. I felt as if all the blood in my body was rushing to my face. Seraphine's lips barely, almost imperceptibly, brushed against my arm, sending a shiver through me. I continuously tried to hypnotize myself. Seraphine is drunk. A drunk person's behavior inherently lacks any logic. It doesn't prove anything at all. But her next sentence instantly left me frozen to the spot. Coleus, you saw it, didn't you? Saw what? 10 years ago, that unsent letter. The love letter meant for you. I looked up in shock. For a moment, I didn't know what to say. On the floor-to-ceiling window across from us, the reflection of me and Seraphine appeared. We were incredibly close, the atmosphere utterly ambiguous. Seraphine's voice was languid, laced with intoxication. Yet she spoke without any ambiguity. Did you know? You are the warmest person I have ever met. She wasn't heartless or oblivious. When others treated her well, she could see it. When she was sick, the thermos on her desk was always filled with hot water. For assignments that needed to be collected, someone would always organize them and place them on her desk. The class didn't have a magical snail girl from the fairy tales, but there was a magical snail boy. It was just that this snail boy disguised his actions far too clumsily. Anyone could guess it was him in a second. This boy named Coleus was always so introverted and honest. The only time he ever got punished by the teacher to stand outside was when he stood up for her. His eyes were red, and he looked quite comical when cursing at someone. But that scene, she had remembered it for many years. In her memory, no one had ever defended her so firmly like that. After the college entrance exams ended, the love letter she wrote never ended up being sent out. On that day, she and her dad had the biggest conflict they'd ever had. Her dad broke her arm, and she used a brick to smash his head open. The terrified neighbors called the police. When they were being taken to the hospital, she looked through the window of the ambulance. So, what if I studied well? Isn't it still just a massive mess? She was never aloof. She just felt inferior. This inferiority complex was like maggots clinging to bone. It couldn't be removed, couldn't be shaken off. Her dad suffered a sudden cerebral hemorrhage during her sophomore year of college and fell into a vegetative state. She squeezed out every bit of her free time outside class to work part-time and earn money, keeping the man alive year after year. At the time, many people advised her, just let it go. This man was so awful. Why even bother saving him? Seraphine didn't want to save him, either. They told her not to save him, but if she truly stopped saving him, they would turn around and call her cruel. They would say there are no overnight grudges between a father and daughter. They would say they indeed shared the same bloodline, and neither of them were good people. People always enjoyed watching a spectacle, never thinking it was too much. Therefore, she was stubbornly determined to prove that she was nothing like that man. Until 2 years ago. That man, who had been lying on the hospital bed for 2 years, couldn't hold on any longer and died in the winter of that year. On that day, Seraphine stood by his hospital bed for a long time. She stood from dawn until dusk. There was no satisfaction, nor was there any sadness or heartbreak. All there was a sense of release. If sunlight ever shone upon her, she finally wouldn't have to hide anymore. When it comes to you, I've always looked forward and glanced backward. I was afraid it was too late, but I was also afraid the timing wasn't right yet. And so, I delayed it time and time again. Listening to her words, a wave of sourness surged in my heart. Her hands embracing me tightened significantly. My heart was pounding faster and faster. I heard her say in a low voice, "Coleus, I like you." Listening to this confession that had been delayed for so many years, I struggled for a long time, only feeling the rims of my eyes grow hot. So, all these years, it wasn't just me secretly holding a torch. Coleus. Seraphine's voice became clearer. It seemed the alcohol was starting to wear off, but her movement of embracing me remained unchanged. I heard her say, "Your ears are so red." I nervously and gently pushed her away. "It's getting late. Boss, you should get to bed early. I'll be heading back now." But the moment I took a single step, my waist was wrapped up by Seraphine again. "I feel a bit unwell. Could you stay with me a little longer?" A drunken Seraphine and her sober self were fundamentally two different people. I simply couldn't resist her. She only softly pleaded with me a few times, and my legs went completely weak. Seraphine took the opportunity to pull me over to sit down. Then, clinging onto my shoulders, she sat right on my lap. Her body temperature was scalding, and her gaze was equally burning. I didn't dare to make eye contact with her. "Seraphine, you're drunk." "I'm not drunk. I know who you are. I know what I'm doing. Her fingers brushed against my cheek. Her fingertips were slightly feverish. I lifted my eyes to look at her, my gaze landing on her lips. There was a voice in my head screaming wildly at me, "Do whatever you want to do. You're both adults. What are you afraid of? You've liked her for so many years. Taking a little reward isn't going overboard, right?" This voice completely shattered my rationality. I tilted my head up and kissed her. The kiss ended as soon as it connected. I pulled back in a panic. But Seraphine's lips pressed forward the very next instant. She cradled my face and deepened the kiss, carrying a gentleness that permitted no refusal. My logic crumbled bit by bit. Unconsciously, my hands wrapped around her waist. Early the next morning, I fled. While sneaking out of the apartment building, I was caught red-handed by a patrolling security guard. "Never seen you before. Which unit are you from?" I stammered and blurted out Seraphine's address. "Can you let me go first? I have an urgent matter." The guard checked his records. "That's not right. You've never registered. The owner of this unit is a woman." Moreover, I panicked. "I am her boyfriend." Understanding dawned on the guard. I breathed a sigh of relief. I was just about to leave when I heard her say, "Wait a second. I'll give the owner a call just to confirm." Before I even had time to stop her, the call had already gone through. "Miss Seraphine, hello." I was ultimately claimed and led away by Seraphine. There was a smile playing at the corners of her mouth. It was a dazzling sight to behold, but I still felt incredibly embarrassed. "Is it funny?" "It's not funny." Seraphine took my hand and led me right back into the apartment. "What were you running away for?" I stayed completely silent. Actually, I was a bit scared. Scared that last night was just a whim on Seraphine's part, while I had taken it entirely seriously. Seraphine paused her footsteps. She seemed to see right through my thoughts. She squeezed my hand. "Boyfriend, what do you want to eat for breakfast?" I stared at her, stunned. "What did you just call me?" "Boyfriend." Seraphine leaned forward slightly. "This is what you said yourself. Are you planning on going back on your word?" "Of course not." I turned my face away and gave a dry cough. "I want noodles." Seraphine was surprisingly good at cooking noodles. I ate until I let out a satisfied burp. I looked up to meet Seraphine's gaze, which was brimming with laughter. I shot her a look. "No laughing." "All right." She stifled her laughter and agreed. I lowered my head and continued eating. "I bought you some clothes. They should arrive shortly. After we eat, we'll go to work together." I froze for a moment. "We go together?" "Yes." Seraphine rested both hands on the table, looking down at me. She enunciated every single word clearly. "From now on, we will always be together." I was always incredibly curious about how she found out that I had read that love letter. Obviously, Fiona and I didn't look alike at all. And my family had only moved into the city a few years ago. It was even more impossible for her to know that was my house. I pressed Seraphine for the answer for a long time. She never told me. She told me to guess it myself. But I really couldn't guess it at all. Soren held his kid's smartwatch and blinked his eyes. Many voices came from the other side. "Be good. You go open the door. Don't say your brother is home, and don't say who your brother is. Give the letter back to her and then close the door. Hello. Are you Soren's aunt? This is your thing. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to take your thing on purpose. It's okay. Soren sold this to you. It is his fault. Did you open it?" It was his aunt's voice. "I'm sorry, Auntie. I was really curious, so I opened it to take a look. But I don't know many words, so I didn't understand it. A late New Year's red envelope. Wishing you progress in your studies." What? His aunt actually gave Fiona a red envelope. When she got back, she didn't give him a red envelope. She even beat him up. Soren was furious. He decided to save the call recording he had just heard and go find his aunt to settle the score.